Hello and welcome back. This is Candace from Candoodle, and today I'm hopping along with the Crescent Creation design team to celebrate the June Digi release. And we're going to be making this really cute interactive Ferris wheel card with these super cute little penguins. So let's get started. I'm going to start off by getting my Digi stamps ready. So I'm just going into Word and opening up the Fairly Awesome stamp set. And I'm going to copy and paste that once because I like to isolate my elements. That's just how I prefer to work with Digi stamps. So I'm going to use the crop tool. If you go under picture format, it is right there on the right hand corner. And I'm just going to drag and drop that so I only have the Ferris wheel that I'm worried about. And I'm just going to keep it the size that it came in the stamp set when I print this out. And then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to scroll down to the other image and I'm going to isolate that little seat. And so I'm doing the same thing. I'm using the crop tool and I'm just going to ensure that I'm only working with the seat and I get as close to the lines as I can. That way I can accurately measure, because what I'm actually going to do is use the tool in the top right corner and I'm going to make it 1 inch wide. And that's because I know how big the size of my penguin stamp is. And so I'm going to put that in front of text and then I'm going to copy and paste it a few times, leaving room for me to stamp my critters. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to print it out and then we're going to move on to the next step. So I'm just cutting apart the Ferris wheel because I'm going to die cut that separately. And then I'm going to put this in my Misty stamping tool and get out my little penguin stamp. So this is from the Mama Elephant Stackable Friends set. And I'm just lining it up with the center of the seat. And then I'm going to use just a simple post-it note to mask off the seat. And so I find this to be a super easy way of masking. And so I'm just going to do that to each one of the little seats. If there are any gaps, you can just fill that in with a micron or any sort of Copic safe pen. Now for the Ferris wheel, I did use a die. This fit perfectly with my 4-inch nesting circle die, so I used that. And then I'm going to do some really quick Copic coloring. I'm only going to show you one of the penguins because I used the same colors on all of them, except I did them all slightly different colors of like purple, blue, and pink, but I'll have those all listed on my blog as well. And I have also tried to get better at putting the caps beside where I'm coloring so it shows as well if you're ever curious about the colors that I'm using. And so while I have you here, because the Ferris wheel did take a little bit longer to color, I just used the same end colors and then added a little bit of a rainbow with all of the kind of lights going around it. But while I am doing that, I'm going to talk a bit about the hop. So we are hopping along today for the Crescent Creation June Digi Stamps release. And there's 4 really cute stamp sets in this, and they're all super kind of awesome fair themed. So I'm using the Fairly Awesome set here, but there's also an accessory set and 2 other ones that have gnomes, which are super cute. And there is a giveaway with this hop, so make sure to check below for all of the details in the description box. But all you have to do is comment on all 4 of the videos in the hop today, and I'll have them all linked below, and one person will win all 4 of these Digi sets. So make sure that you're commenting along all of the stops so you can be eligible to win these, because they're super, super fun to work with. And I love Digi stamps because you can always change the size of them and there is so much versatility. So they're definitely something worthwhile. So now I am moving on to the background panel and I'm just doing some simple distress ink blending. So for this one, I did shaded lilac, tumbled glass, and then I am going to come in towards the bottom with some cracked pistachio. And as you can see, I'm leaving a bit of a hole in the center, and that's because the Ferris wheel is going to cover that. And we're actually going to die cut a circle through the center, which you'll see in a little bit here. So I just used my blending brushes and got a nice blend until I was happy. And then I'm coming in with that circle die and I'm going to cut out the center. And that circle die was 2 inches in diameter, because what we're going to do here is put the Ferris wheel on top. We're going to have another wheel behind that we're going to be able to turn, and it's going to be attached to the Ferris wheel with a brad. And so that's where we're headed with this. I die cut myself a little bit of a template when I was working. So 3 3/4 and 4.5 are the diameters of each of the circles. And as you can see, this one lines up perfectly with the Ferris wheel. So I'm going to poke a hole in the center of that. And I had the center marked on my template to make it easier for myself. And then I'm going to make sure it fits on the back and mark off the center. I do double check with my template to make sure my marking is in the right place before I put a hole in that back circle as well. And then I cut out 3 circles that are going to go in between just to give the Ferris wheel some lift off of the front. And so those circles are about 1 3/4 inches in diameter. And so, like I said, they're just going to serve to kind of give the Ferris wheel some lift off the front of the cardstock. So as you can see here, I'm coming in with my long neck hole punch and I'm just punching a hole in the center of those. And I showed 3, but I only actually glued together 2 to use on the actual card. And then once those were glued together, I glued them down to the back circle. And so while we're here, I am going to take the circle that we cut out of the center of our shaded cardstock over there, and I am going to put a hole through the center of that because this is going to attach to the back of our Ferris wheel with a brad, but it's what's actually going to be foam taped down to the card. And this will make more sense when we get to the putting it all together step later. But before we put it together, we have to get our little penguins ready. So if I were to glue them down, when we spin the wheel, as you can see, they'll flip upside down, which isn't exactly what I wanted. So in order for them to be able to kind of turn with the card and keep their seat facing down, we are going to do something different. So what I did was I got my hole punch and I punched through the spokes, leaving one spoke in between. I know I was a little scared to do this after all that coloring, but it turned out just fine. And what I needed here was my favorite things, like kind of interactive little bit pieces, but I didn't have any. So I took my 3/4 inch hole punch and I just punched it out 4 times from really thick cardstock and glued them together to kind of make my own of those interactive bits. And it worked out just fine. So you could definitely do that. And I also have these 4 circles, which I cut out using a die from the My Favorite Things launch party, but you basically just need paper that you can glue down those little interactive bits to. And so what we're going to do here is I'm going to tape down those interactive bits to my back circles. And then once those are all done and dried a little bit, I'm going to put them through the Ferris wheel. I'm going to thread them through their appropriate holes, and then I'm going to glue the penguins' heads to that. But there's another important step here. In order for the seats to kind of move downward, we want gravity to be working with us. So what we're going to do is add a weight to the bottom, which is going to make the seat want to always be facing downward. Unfortunately, I live in Canada where we don't have pennies anymore, so I had to use dimes for this. So this card cost at least 40 cents plus all the other materials to make it. But they work just the same, adding a weight to the bottom. You could use any other weights as well, but if you're in the US and still have pennies, that would be my recommendation. And then once those are there, I use glossy accents because it tends to adhere different mediums together quite well. I'm going to come in just with my regular glue and glue the penguins' heads down to those little interactive bits that I made. And you're going to want to make sure not to move this around too much until that glue has some time to dry. So once it was dry, you can see here that it's moving really well. So we are going to be able to move on to the next step. So before I put this on my card base, I am going to cut a hole, like a half circle in the side so the recipient can easily spin the card. That was just a template that I made for myself beforehand that I was using to kind of make sure my pieces were in the right spot. And then I am going to put some glue on the centerpiece and make sure that my Ferris wheel is lined up perfectly with that glue, and I used a brad right away. That way I could still wiggle it around if the holes weren't lined up. Before I close the brad, I am going to take that circle that we cut out of our back panel and I'm going to put it towards the back. So it is the last piece that is going to go in the brad before I close it. And then that is the piece that I am going to put foam tape on because it's what's going to adhere this down to the card base. So I'm only putting foam tape on that back circle as well as around the external perimeter so that this wheel can still spin. Through the magic of fast forward, my foam tape is gone, and then I'm putting it down on another sheet of cardstock, which is going to give it some extra lift off of the card base. And as you can see, everything is spinning well there, and then I'm going to come in with my ATG and stick that down to the card base. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little die cut arrow, and then that is the final card. So I hope you enjoyed today's little tutorial for how to make this super cute Ferris wheel card. Don't forget to hop along to all of the other participants on the stop. And I actually also have another video where I made something similar. If this process wasn't super clear, I'll link to that here. As always, you can always find me over on Instagram at Candoodle Creations, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!